Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the DJ Sessions Presents the Virtual Sessions. I'm your host, Darren, and right now I'm sitting in the virtual studios in Seattle, Washington, and coming in all the way from Chicago, we have Dance Loud, DJ Christian Sanchez, and Desiree Fawn. How are you two ladies doing today?
Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, we're doing mighty fine.
Absolutely. The last time we did this interview thing that we did, it was in my other studio, in my other place that I was dwelling in. I've now moved into a new place up on a 16th floor with a beautiful view out the back window, and I'm loving it. So I'm glad that I have you both back in the studio with me today. You know, Dance Loud, as I quote off your website, is not a DJ and not a band, but somewhere weird in between. Which one of you would like to elaborate on that?
Oh, goodness. I think we might have gotten that as a comment from someone. I'm not even sure where that saying even came from, but we get kind of a lot of questions as to what we do. Are we the DJs? Are we a band? What do we need? Why do you need a monitor? And it's really just to make sure our sound equipment's perfect.
Yeah,
you never know what we're getting into. It's like, is there going to be a sound person or not? Is this a stage mostly for DJs? Is this one for bands? And places where you go to see bands don't typically ever work with DJs, and vice versa.
So I play the drums, guitar, and vocals. Kristen spins. Yeah.
You know, my business partner, Jay, out of Phoenix, Arizona, he is into drum and bass. And one of the things he does now is he will play a live drum set over the drum and bass music, but then he'll also jump out and start playing a guitar as well.
It's perfect.
And then jump back and play the drums. And it's like really kind of kick ass to see that kind of fusion.
Yeah. And drum and bass is fast and it takes your energy. I feel like you would jump out to play guitar to like build your energy back up to jump back on the drums, you know?
It's like a physical aspect.
If you could describe your music in 3 words, what would you call it?
Emotional dance music?
Okay.
Emotional dance music. So EDM.
Right.
Right.
That's awesome. You know, let's talk a little bit about, what your live set entails, actually. If I were to come to a show, what would I see? What would I expect? Or would I expect something? Or am I seeing something that's never been done before? Or tell us what that live set entails.
So knowing our personalities, I bet it's going to change every single year of what the heck we're going to touch on stage. Like, am I going to do this on stage or that? We have many variations. This year, our set entails Desiree on the drum kit. I'm on the drum pads, playing a lot of the recorded samples that we created from field recording and then blew it up on the computer, whatever we did. We did surgery with our field recordings. And then they went in, we grabbed hits from the master tracks where they're alone. We just muted everything and put it into the USB of the drum pads. So we just have our own kits. We create our own kits. So in our live set is where we had to adjust a lot of the sensitivity and velocity and a little bit of reverb. Is there going to be a couple reverbs? How are we going to do a reverb? Is it through a computer or is it through the sound person? Will there be a sound person?
So Kristen does she does CDJs and the drum pads. And then I do, this year we're taking it back to the roots. We started off as a DJ and drummer. So we're like going back to, now we're performing the songs. My part, I'm doing just drums and vocals. So that's kind of to see live. That's what it looks like. It's like a DJ drummer this year. And like the past we had done guitars and stuff, but it really it made it really laid back. It's like our whole album is like 128 beats per minute. But when I play guitar, it could be perceived as 64 beats per minute. So this year we're like, well, let's keep it up. Let's keep up a lot of our shows were all mostly DJ events, no venues. The guitar, I think, is good for venues, but the DJ and drums, we just wanted to keep the energy up.
And the drum kit that you're using, because you mentioned you're using drum pads, but are you using like a Roland V drum with this, or is it like it's a full real
it's
drum
kit?
analog drum
It's
kit.
an acoustic kit that I'm in the midst of converting it to becoming a full hybrid kit. That the kick right now is being triggered from her drum pads, but I want the toms and snares to be triggered as well. So it'll be like half, because it's kind of like Vinnie Paul from Pantera. His kit was half hybrid. It would trigger, and it was also a
Mic'd.
live kit
Right.
that was mic'd.
Which is our favorite sound that we both prefer, is a mic
Yeah.
kit with some reverb for the mic'd kit, and then a separate electronic club kick coming triggered off of the pads or
Actually, the
whatever.
kit's behind us. I don't know if you could see it. There we go.
Kinda, yeah. a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's got real symbols. It's all real. Yeah, but there's triggers on it.
And it's smaller these days now. She used to travel with a giant kick, which is better for recording. But since we go on tour, we really like carrying what was used in New York often for jazz, but it's like a floor tom but skinny. So that's the kick, and then that's what has the trigger. So we can get away with this tiny kick now.
Nice. What are some of the difficulties or benefits of being this hybrid band in a DJ dominant festival or a festival that has no DJs at all?
I mean, the kick sounds a lot better, but the sensitivity was, I don't know how long did it take us to figure out the sensitivity?
Yeah, a couple different triggers. This realm we went with D-drum. It was actually the Vinnie Paul signature trigger. In the past, I'd use Aquarian because I loved Aquarian's kick drum heads, but the sensitivity would be weird where I'd hit the kick and it'd be like, or it would be like I'd hit the kick and it was delayed. And it was like,
it's adhesive too, so it's never forever.
That's how that one was. So that's where I feel like, a lot of times when we're playing, and specifically like clubs where there's a booth, Kristen's set up in the booth. Sometimes she even has stereo monitors. But then it's like, okay, where does the live part of it go?
Those stereo monitors could catch some feedback.
Right. Like live vocals, like you can't have speakers behind you.
I need to hear her, like I need to hear I want the whole mix.
It makes it really tricky.
We get so scared of feedback. So I got this hypercardioid mic that's supposed to be better than a Shure 58. I think it's got a better low response, and I also blow up the mic using a cloud lifter. So I'm pumping in 48 volts to a live audience. It's really dangerous, and a lot of live sound guys are scared of it, or they're not. They'll use a gate, whatever. But I just warn them, like, hey, I got 48 volts down here. Just be sensitive on the gain, because we also have our own volume attenuator on her microphone, just for safety reasons, because she has in-ear. Oh, it's another expense and venture was being a hybrid band in a club world, DJ world. She needed special 3D in-ear monitors to hear a little bit of her kit, because a lot of the times the kit is not mic'd up. So if you have complete sealed in-ears, you can't hear yourself, And
that was the con of the clubs where the kit wasn't mic'd. And I think the best sound of live, is when I hear they turn those subs on when we're doing mic check and my kick starts kicking in, and it's just in the whole room, it's so big, and it's like that's where a lot of clubs just didn't have that. That's why we started triggering.
Our first major clubs together with acoustic set, it was awful. It sounded like poop because there was delays. It was not mic'd. Nobody could hear what it was doing
too
like
big.
A train wreck.
Yeah.
Because the acoustics is just a mess. We've gone so far into this hybrid setups, like probably a decade of messing configuring with this, at least a decade.
On the bright side, though, I do think there's a trend coming of hybrids, and we played Heatwave this summer and we were on the hybrid stage. So they brought this entire roller cart only for my drum kit to be able to roll it off the stage real quick.
It was a platform.
Yeah.
On a giant platform the size of a bedroom.
It was huge. And then just would roll it off, So now that's where it's like, I'm happy that it's coming, because now bigger venues and festivals are like, okay, how do we cater to this? But the past 10 years, there was us catering even to, when we'd play venues. Well, there's, this kind of people, here it is. There's like rock people don't understand DJs, and and there was always that kind of tricky thing. It was like, well, what do they do back there? I was like, a lot. I don't even know how to do it. Like.
And then we've been battling, now that the stages are getting bigger and bigger, we've been battling having our own field recordings that we blew up into the loudspeakers of these major events, because now the stage is rattling. And I don't think I watched everybody's set, nobody was rattling. And I do make it a point in our songs to make extra bass. I'm probably going deaf, I'm not sure, but I like it, and the whole, like, you can't even, Desiree's, even with her new in-ears, she's like, oh, I don't even know. Her seats, the whole platform bedroom is just shaking,
Yeah.
That sounds crazy. If you two could host an event of your own without any limitations, name 5 or 6 things you would want to have at that event.
Tech-wise?
Tech-wise, without any limitations.
Okay.
Our own event?
Our own event? Yeah.
I think, okay.
It would be indoor. It would be indoor. We prefer indoor sound versus outdoor.
I've had this long time dream of having, this is so outrageous, it doesn't even make any logical sense, but I think it would be the best. But if there was flying speakers above everyone's head, like 11.1, but they move, the same way you would automate that above your head in Logic or something like that, but have it physically doing it instead of an automation. I mean, you see, that's why it doesn't make sense, because if you have 11 speakers, then you wouldn't need to have them flying. But I think it would be better.
Okay, that's the second aspect.
And then the subwoofer would be underneath plexiglass, and it would be on the floor, and then it would be like a vibrating.
I have actually drawn out an entire, so that's 2 parts of it. I have drawn out an entire thing that it was a 33-part stage, and it's a huge circle, and it would come into town like a traveling circus. And so that's where it was like all the speakers could actually be on tracks and be able to move on different parts of it, and the floor and the ceiling and the walls and everything would be like LED, where it's like completely interactive. But like how to create, when a bass hits, you can make it feel like you're falling off of like a waterfall, but like how not to make people just like fall on the ground. I mean, it would almost, maybe the ground could be padded, because all your senses would go off, and you would have to most be careful the way you would take someone to the next screen, because you could make someone just fall over, and that was something that it would be like an entire truly integrated, there's a lot of things coming in town that are, what was it? Like the Van Gogh exhibit, and different things where it's like, yeah, that's fun, but it's not there yet. So,
okay, I got it.
That times 100.
Here's one. I just came up with it right now. I was paying attention, I swear, but here we go. A new idea. When you go to Great America, Six Flags, and they have that thing where you can go into a space shuttle, and it's like maybe 20 people go into the space shuttle thing, and it's on hydraulics. It rocks you like this, and it's got a movie screen. Okay, so Sell the Street Festivals is a bunch of those hydraulic machines for like kind of like Asian karaoke. You rent the room, and then it's your whole 20 people party in there. It's just you guys, and then it's like this whole like hydraulic experience of like surround sound and a screen, or 3D screen above your head, everything like as though you're a space shuttle. Like Six Flags.
I know before we started the show, we were talking about a subject we talked about last time, which is virtual reality. And, it's going to be very amazing to see what people are going to eventually create in those virtual reality lands, where you might literally fly up to a stage, and then the sound can change depending on what zone you're in, or the way you're going to be able to interact and have a concert or show in virtual reality. And maybe your drum kit isn't like a standard drum kit where you're doing drum, or your pads aren't there. They're up here, and you're doing all your stuff like this. But if you watched it with a video camera on you, it'd look like you were doing some interpretive dance or something that would work within the show, but you're actually creating a pattern of doing it in VR. I think that'd be really awesome of doing that. But we're at 3. I think that's number 3. Was it at 3 or 4?
Okay, I think that was 4. Yeah. So there was like, it's indoor, the sound, the moving speakers, the visual aspects. Yeah, the surround. I guess we are in a way describing VR in real life, and then
Yeah, but I want it without the headphones because I get motion sickness sometimes.
she does get motion sickness on her VR. And the other thing is like I want the headphone quality to increase in time as VR increases. It's it's awesome that they're not over your ears and you can hear everything really well. We have the Oculus, but it would be nice to have where it's like bass. But the last part of it would be I don't know tech. Okay, I'm leaning towards this is touring, we're able to enter a bunch of cities, like our next big goal is Japan. Or I think I would actually just say just no tech issues. Like if there could be one time where there's just no tech, anything we have to figure out on the fly, all that's figured out. Yeah, that would be the fifth part. Is it's just like a perfect production.
Totally can understand that. After doing video production in the field for years, I was the guy that would have to run to Radio Shack and build something on the fly in the Radio Shack, going this part, this part, this part. Okay, cool. Come back and my producer would go, "How do you know how to do all this stuff?" I go, "I don't know, man. I just made it up. It works. Let's go."
Right. Troubleshooting is the best skill anyone could have.
Yeah. If you could look at one of your, take a look at your list of productions you've done so far, as in songs that you've produced, which of those stands out the most to you and why? And both of you get a chance to answer this.
I know she's gonna pick Wildlight and I'm gonna pick Shady Beach. Am I right?
Maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, she said maybe I'm wrong.
No.
And why would those be your selections?
You go first.
Shady Beach is the happiest song. I'm like more of that in that mode full time. Of how that song sounds. I stopped smoking Newports, and then for me to transition out of that, I had to smoke a lot of something else. So now I'm still transitioning to not do any kind of smoking as much. So it's just part of the transition where I'm in this state like that song almost. I mean, incredibly often. So I guess that's why it's most enjoyable to me. Plus, it's like the bassiest song too.
Yeah, that's when the Moog came in. Yeah, I guess I would choose what? Sorry. Yeah, I guess I would choose YLI. Yeah, because it has the field recordings. Like it was a storm in my parents' front yard. It was a song that I started writing almost 20 years ago. It finally completed. But I think that especially like with Shady Beach that's when we'd gotten the Moog synthesizer and the bass on the Moog. We had bought another like this bass guitar up here and was trying to figure out ways of blowing up the bass, and then it was just like analog synth was the route.
Yeah. When you buy a bunch of software, like, well, you start with free synth, then you go with not so free synth, then it's like a $500 thing of sounds you don't even like.
Yeah, I grew up playing with my father financed my brother's studio when I was a kid, and while my brothers weren't the most literate, they were is it literate? Literate is when you can read, right? Yeah, illiterate is they weren't the most literate youth, but they just didn't understand technical stuff. And back in the 80s, the manuals would come written, translated from Japanese into English. And it didn't really make that much sense. But I would go in there at 8 years old and be playing with the keyboards, the 8 tracks, the 4 tracks, the rack mounts, everything. And they'd come home and they'd first of all beat me up, but then I'd show them what I did, and they'd be like, "Don't touch our stuff." And then they'd be like, "Well, how'd you make this happen? This is so cool." And I'm like, "I read the manual." I think when you mentioned earlier about troubleshooting or figuring things out, it's just doing that hands-on research to figure out how to use that. But you're right, you could end up with a machine that you're like, "I don't like any of these sounds." Like,
all the time.
Sucks. What do you do?
And sounds and everything. And then the album made us realize we went back to basics, and that sounded the best, and field recording, and with the other software synths, we added that as part of one synth. So you collect all these synths and you have to master phasing issues, putting something in without phasing something out accidentally, and yet keeping it full or sounding full. And they all complete as like one giant orchestra. And that was the problem with finding a good synth. It's like, well, I guess you need all of it, you know.
Well, and nowadays, I mean, I remember going back in the day, and I just as a hobby project, I bought a Roland MC505 and a Roland SP808, which is got the sequencer and the sampler. And just at that time, you were just starting to see the software programs come out. But to get a computer to run it and do all that, you're looking at $5,000-$6,000. And I'm like, I'm not that serious about making music. I just wanted something where I could turn knobs and make different noises and put in a beat and make it in the sequencer like real time. But then I went to go work for Apple years later. And when I was working for Apple, I got introduced to Logic, and I just fell in love with that program. Even just using Soundtrack, I don't even think Soundtrack's around anymore. Even GarageBand was fun to play around with, and how easy it can be to make songs. What is your take on AI entering into the music industry?
We started listening to a bunch of AI music just the other day.
Yeah, it was actually like they would take like a song and then throw a different vocalist on it. And I was like, I kind of like this version more. For what we were specifically listening to, someone posted it and I caught it. And then I don't know. I think it's really interesting. I don't think it's going to take anyone's jobs away. It took our gerbs. AI took our gerbs. It's not,
I don't have a problem with it because I like pop music, and I know a lot of people can get tired of it. And I think there's such a science to pop music, like a mathematical thing more likely. And the AI robot is exactly a representation of it's basically math, Music is math. I think for original artists, it makes it even harder, and what people are calling original artists today doesn't even, it almost feels like AI anyway. Like if you hear, I like, for example, Billie Eilish, a lot of the songs, like there's this one spot where it sounds like a collage of many famous songs. The production sounds really original, but certain tiny 4-second spots will sound like, for example, The Doors.
Like you could hear the influences on a lot of people's music.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost already AI,
But I do think it's another tool, I feel like it's like anything, if it's
Mariah Carey, that's basically all her Christmas songs are like a person or an AI robot, whatever you want to call them. They studied jazz classics for old Christmas. Like what is it, Bing
Crosby and a lot of
Mariah Carey's originals are basically remixed Bing. It's almost like the hit songs of today are already AI'd by a human. It's musicology. It's the study of musicology, and it's fine. I don't have an issue with it. But then to make something newer is even more of a challenge. Or original.
Well, and I was watching somewhere a video the other day, and it was this guy, and he was talking about how he blew up and became this internet sensation, but he did everything himself. And he was comparing himself, I want to say he was comparing himself to Taylor Swift, and how Taylor Swift has 14 writers on her team.
Mm-hmm. We call it the bus.
All those people are probably classically trained, have in-depth backgrounds, maybe doctorates even, if you want to put it down. And you're right. Is that the human element becoming AI? And is this guy just doing it on his own and doing it all natural? Or what's the term you just used a few moments ago was not independent artist. What's the term? You just used it. Original artist?
Yeah,
original
content or whatever.
I think it was original content.
Yeah, we call it the bus. We call it like when you look at
14 writers. They're all on this bus together.
Yeah, it's like any big radio friendly big music label, and you look at the bus of people that's on it that created the album. Like, I mean, you'll see you look at Madonna, Beyonce, there's 40 people,
Yeah.
And that's where, I mean, I guess in that way, you could use AI as a tool to create your bus. It's like, I feel like, it's like we're just constantly evolving. We were listening to like 90s alternative rock yesterday. It was like, oh man, think about the evolution when that came from, and then where we are today. And as like genres keep coming, and as the DAW made it where it was actually affordable to start being able to like create on the computer and have plugins, and I just feel like you can still be original using a tool like that to an extent. I've never done it, but I feel like, you know, it could make you become more creative in a sense. I don't know. I don't even 100%. I think you type in, "Hey, create this," and then it will create this. But, if you could use it as like inspiration, like I would like to hear what the clave mixed with like monks mixed with, like what would these three very underwater sound like? And then to be like, oh, okay, this is like a whole new sound. Okay, like maybe I could draw inspiration from this. I feel like in that way, I think it could be a tool that could help with original work. I mean, I don't know. I'm just
Well, I was at ADE last year, and the question came up. I was asking people about AI and the involvement of it, and they said the one thing that they didn't think that it would have would be soul. That was the word that kept coming up. It wouldn't have heart. It wouldn't have soul that you get from somebody actually composing or putting something in there. But if I came up and said I want a 124 house with guitar, female vocals, da 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 da, and pluck, and it pops out this song, and I'm like, okay, I go and put that out there. Was that my soul that was putting into it? Was that I was still creating that vision of what I wanted to see. Somebody may not be so talented or educated to know how to make music, but if they're trying to put in their feelings, is that putting soul in this? Is that the same thing you're doing when you're using a DAW like Logic or Ableton or something like that? You are physically putting the notes in there, but you usually are using sample packs,
right.
Or something on the back end, or you maybe having some ghost producing done for you,
I see what
on the back end. So, it's very interesting.
I feel like too, I mean, maybe I'm taking it a different route, but like, the quantize, where, someone would put in on a drum machine or something into a DAW, and then you'd quantize it to make it either more perfect or less perfect. And I've never been very good with the quantize. And there's certain things that, when it comes to bass and drums, like specifically bass, I think bass really needs to be dead on, and it really needs to sit perfect in the song. It's one of the very few aspects. But, say that you're messing with the synthesizer, you're doing vocals or you're doing like mid-high work, like whether it be keys or guitar or something. That's where it's like human error comes into play, and I think it makes the song sound more real. Like you don't want that to be perfect. And that's where I think AI could take away the soul if they're not adding like a quantize to make error.
So we noticed with our past productions before the album and the productions with the album, because we got the Moog and we couldn't figure out the MIDI use for it, and we just did straight up audio signal using the Moog. So that forced us to do entire takes. And with takes, it's always a fun fact that take one is probably the most soulful or the best take. And another fun fact, Celine Dion's Titanic hit, that was a take number one. I don't think AI could get take one on that, and it just, the whole thing is, if you don't cut and you play the whole song, there's some kind of magic that happens towards the end, 3/4 usually, something like that. Depends on the length. Or you become soulful 20 minutes later, you chop it up, and then you bring that, bring it over to the, to the structure of the song. So I think there is going to be a weakness with AI. Like that's that live thing. And I think it actually happens from playing something live, not by, I mean, I would consider still sequencing notation while the record button is in for a long length of time is still,
I would like to point out though, too, just because, the way we make music is we see it as a restaurant that makes everything in-house, and we consider it fine dining of music because we have created everything and there's soul added to everything. But who's not to say that like someone who grabs like samples or loops, I mean, they didn't make it, and not to say that there wasn't a soul that did make it, but there are a lot of like, different programs that will create drum beats, where that's in a way AI, like, and it's been in music for a long time. I think if you choose to do something like that and you use it as a single track, like the clave that creates the drum and bass, underwater, or something where you can do something where you can still like, as long as I guess it's not the entire song, if you're using it as an element. I mean, because there's a lot of people that have like Splice memberships, or they'll straight up get a pack and it's a song and has every part of the song, and then they just like arrange it, but they didn't make it, like they didn't make any part of it. They just arranged it and they were kind of the mix engineer on it. And that's fun. But it was like, at what point where did that pull the soul out of the music? And then you hear other people with those packs and it's like, all these songs sound the same. Y'all are using the same thing.
Imagine like a high-end garage band loop arrangement, compared to like, I don't know, a real like Leonard Skinner or something.
Yeah. So I feel like it could be used as a tool, like if it's like a single track or something, versus the entire song. I don't know.
Well, technology moves pretty fast in nowadays. And if you could both think of something that's not on the market today, and your vision would be really amazing, what would that be?
Technology?
I mean, I've always had a vision of roller skating while live and going to, like, I would need roller skates because the channel I want to mix in is like 24 channels away. But it's a ridiculous, not necessary technology of like just having 24 channels to DJ with live.
That sounds fun, though.
I mean, I'll go like old school and say I think I would love to be zapped from our studio to our venue, and like there's no loading and there's no travel, and like what is that, like Star Trek, like
It's virtual reality.
Teleportation?
Yeah, or we could just virtual reality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I mean,
just
I
have
think it all
this-
just comes back to
our
that.
equipment already virtually set up, and then we'll just perform that template that we created, and then all we have to do is log in and
Yeah.
perform in a we don't even move, and we're just always in our one stand still thing, so our arms just go like this. We'll just be octopuses.
It's gonna be like Lawnmower Man, the movie.
Yeah, upload,
Totally, yeah.
dance loud, live set, go. 2000
Going back to that virtual reality
Yeah.
discussion.
Right?
That'd be
It's just,
great.
um,
I'd buy that
so-
as a musician.
Name the most inspiring person you've ever met backstage, and tell us why this person inspired you. Desiree, you can go first.
Backstage.
It's the people on a Monday at the dive bar downtown is the most inspiring,
Yeah, that is tricky. It's
because the ones backstage, they're wearing a fictitious suit often, and and then it's a lot of small talk.
Yeah, I've kind of been a big believer of like never meet your idols. I have been disappointed like several times where it's like, yeah, I mean, it takes a certain personality to get to a certain place, but inspirational. I mean, I'm trying to think of like even stage crews. These people work hard. And what's crazy is you'll see them asleep under these big stages, like fully asleep. And it's so loud. It's like, how do you sleep? It's just like you're just so tired. This is your one chance to sleep, to see that. I mean, it's like trying to think of
Where was that bathroom stall in that witch's city in a small town?
it was like this town in Florida that was like known as like a like esoteric occult witch town or something, and we were close to it, and someone said, hey, you should check it out, and we're like, okay. And then we went to this old hotel to get lunch, and then it had this restroom. What are you talking about, the restroom? Is it that? Are you talking
Yeah,
about?
but I don't even. I just remember feeling really inspired leaving there from all the quotes on the wall. But then I don't even remember. I have such a terrible memory.
Yeah.
But I can't say ever backstage that I've met someone inspirational. It was just because it's not just a suit that they wear; it's a work suit on top of it.
Mhm.
So it's very that if you're ever in the service industry, there's this moment, the calm before the storm. And that's for the most part, these artists are in that calm before the storm. And you almost never meet them after the storm. Like that's probably at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you two become different people when you get on stage, or are you the same people off stage that you're on stage, or is there a change there?
I think it's the same both. We see ourselves as kind of like dude bros. Like I don't know, like
We joke that we're a couple bros naturally, which we are.
we like to play flip cup, with loudspeakers pumping EDM and chugging beers and making beers. We're like,
home brewers, yeah.
we're growing, we're evolving.
We saw this episode and it was like of this bachelor and it was like had a refrigerator in their living room and speakers all around the house and every room and all that. And we're like, yeah, that's us.
Yeah, you can
actually
just reach over and grab a beer.
We have a kegerator in our living room. We actually started making mineral water recently.
We put loudspeakers in every single room that are floor standing,
Every room has speakers. Yeah, it's
I think this is why like we're in what we are into or what we do is because of that core personality. And I just, when we get into stage mode, it is work mode. I'm still social though. I think we're just this. In fact, we try to bring people pre-show a lot of the times, which a lot of people don't. I don't think they like to socialize pre-show.
I mean, it's like when I play the drums, like I feel like I just go out and there's a lot of headbanging, there's a lot of energy, and it's like animal from the puppets. And I think it's just like a part of like my personality. I was like diagnosed with ADHD twice, like when I was a little kid and when ADHD, like the hyperactive. I was like a very hyper kid. The hyperness comes out in the drums. I still have that energy. And then like with the guitar, I think it was like what was it, Pavlov's dog. I conditioned myself when I'd play the guitar, it'd be around a bonfire. And I never sung growing up or anything. So anytime I would sing was like if I had it, we're around a bonfire, kumbaya, drinking a couple beers or something. And then, so when I do play guitar, like we'd mentioned earlier, it was like on stages, it turns into Welcome to the Quiet Storm. Like very
turns into 64 beats per minute.
Very chill. Like it's like almost this really, I don't know where it comes from. It's very
your strums are very much
and I think that's the other part of this, like our that bro personality of just kind of like chill, like I don't sounds good,
the
like
only thing that changes is that we can't do shots before a show and we have to eat perfectly. So we turn fancy right before. She's like, well, did you guys want some tapas at this fine
caviar?
Yeah.
Oysters do well. Because I have a super sensitive stomach, so I can't have dairy. I'm dealing
a drummer with a sensitive stomach.
Yeah, like I can't.
Like, at 128 beats per minute, drummer, terrible.
That's awesome. So when you're not entertaining others, you did mention a few of your hobbies that you're doing right now. When you're not entertaining others, what do you do to entertain yourself? What do you primarily like focusing on?
I have like 30 hobbies.
Yeah,
Kristen counted them once.
I wrote it all down once. For me, I have this constant like old Cadillac in the garage. It's really a Jeep Wrangler, a 2002. And I'm constantly trying to like create this fantasy Jeep with subwoofers and blah blah blah, chrome. I'm almost there. Not really. Like my sound system's not even working right now. I'm so sad. But that's been my lifelong thing. And Desiree's lifelong thing is her stop motion. That's like, Beetlejuice, he's got his thing in the attic. And he's constantly taking his whole life to work on this like giant, awesome art. What do you call it? Diorama or whatever he has. What is the Alec Baldwin has in the attic? So that's Desiree. She has this lifelong movie, like, what is it? Ideally it'd probably be like an 80-minute movie for all stop motion.
Oh yeah, it's for every second takes like so long to create stop motion. I swear, it's like don't even blink. Like it's gonna be like Clockwork Orange. Like keep the eyes open because you just missed out on like 4 days worth of work with that blink.
Wow, and that's you mentioned Clockwork Orange is like my number one favorite movie in the world, so I totally know the reference that you're talking about. But wow, that's awesome. If you could score a Hollywood film, which director would you like to work with?
Oh man, I see. It's not really a direct. Okay,
is it Mike Judge a director? Is that Is that what he does?
think
Creates the whole thing.
Who does what?
Mike Judge, the Beavis and Butthead, Idiocracy, Office Space.
I think
Yeah.
is he producer now? He might have director
I like
credits.
terrible IMDb.
Sure. I should know this. But yeah,
Yeah, director-wise, because immediately what came to mind was like Ed Boon. It was like I would love to do a sync with Mortal Kombat because I love Mortal Kombat so much.
Who did They Live?
That was Wes.
Because he did a soundtrack too. I like the whole soundtrack. Of
No,
it.
John Carpenter. Isn't John Carpenter the one that he creates his own soundtracks too?
oh yeah, John does his own soundtracks.
Yeah, I mean They Live was such a great.
I just like his whole concept.
That was a very underrated B film that I loved out of the 80s. I mean, that was like that Escape from New York, I think was a really kick-ass one too.
Did he do
with Kurt Russell.
Big Trouble in Little China?
I think he
I love
did.
that movie.
That movie was really that's another top one, favorite one of mine. I'm a huge movie buff. I've watched movies since I was a kid. I'll watch movies over and over and over and over and again and memorize them. I mean,
Yeah.
The Warriors.
The Warriors. Hold on,
Came up with the idea with all the best friends wearing the same outfits. I love it.
We love that movie.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. JOA.
Oh, gangs, a group of best friends.
Yeah. Best friends.
I swear it is.
Is
Come on, let me just get to his IMDb really quick.
I'll look too.
Yeah, he's pretty old. Okay, here we go. John Carpenter. I swear he did The Warriors.
I know, that's what I'm feeling like
so
too.
I naturally have consistent taste. Okay, good.
Just give me a second, because
I know I'm doing the same.
I'm in 2007 right now. I got to get down to the 80s. Oh, there we go. So
Director Walter Hill.
Oh.
Escape from New York was 81. Prince of Darkness, They Live. Escape from LA. God, no, I don't think he did.
Just has that vibe.
Pure talent. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
How do I? Hold on. Now this is gonna bug me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a really good soundtrack and movie at the same time. Not so much The Warriors, but
No, the director was John Carpenter for that.
For the Warriors?
Oh no, I'm sorry. Big Trouble in Little
Yeah,
China.
okay, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I think I would lean towards John Carpenter because I really have a respect for him being a part of the soundtrack. You know, it's not a lot of people do that. And the soundtracks of especially They Live is just so like there was a I think South Park did a pandemic special and there's a part where they're like in the cafeteria. It was like, that's They Live, you know, it was like immediately like it was just so recognizable, you know, and the director created that. I think that's amazing. And yeah, because that's a sync is a big goal of mine. You know, there's very specific movies that like Fight Club when the Pixies play. And, you know, there's just very specific movies where the sync is just so perfect that that's something we've been manifesting that I want more than anything. It's just a really perfect sync that, you know, the like Steven Spielberg said that sound is half the picture, you know, to be able to be part of half the picture and be a perfect setup. That's a huge goal of mine.
I mean, our goal, we've said it a million times. We even went to where it's made, and stood outside of it and dreamed. But if we could do Mortal Kombat, imagine, you remember the old tape cassettes from the old movie? I don't know. They were
like 1995's Mortal Kombat.
Dun, 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 dun,
Yep.
dun, dun.
Get over here.
A dance lab. Like,
Yeah, that was fun. That was actually a really great video game too when it first came out. We played that in the arcade all the time. And then Mortal Kombat 2 came out and it was even better. I've seen that. I think what are they, Mortal Kombat 5 now or something like that when you play it on the PlayStation or something. The graphics are insane.
I think they're coming out with like 11 or 12 now.
Yeah, it probably is up there. You're right.
Yeah.
It probably is up there. Like 11
There is
or 12.
something coming in September. There's like a new. Yeah, I'd nerd out on that. I mean, I love the Mortal Kombat Legacy. You could see,
let's
and
just do a song, bootleg it, and then slip it under the door since it's right here by it's not that far from where we live, like where they.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. It was like, this is like a Chicago made, it was Midwest Games originally. Like NetherRealm has their studios here, and
I'll just slip a tape cassette under the door.
And I mean the history of it too. I think Mortal Kombat, the arcade, was banned in Australia when it first came out, and I like the storyline of it, and I don't know. I like kind of fantasy. I think that would be considered fantasy. Like I guess Big Trouble in Little China, same thing. I love that like kind of combat. I got into Avatar: Last Airbender. Of the different forms of.
I've just started watching Korra, The Legend of Korra.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was actually, I know it's Nickelodeon, it's for 7-year-olds, but I was like, this is actually pretty cool. Same with Dragon Prince and Castlevania. I don't know if you're into the anime type of stuff, but yeah, I totally, Last Airbender. Now, were you talking about the movie The Last Airbender or the
animated series? Yeah, because I just thought it was such an interesting how they took all of, it was like Kung Fu, Jiu-Jitsu, like there was each element like represented a form of combat, which was super interesting. And I mean, especially speaking of anime, it was like, when Daft Punk hired, that artist to create that that video album for them, that animation, it was like, it's amazing. That's where, and creating an entire storyline around an album that had already come out, I think was even more amazing about that, and that's
I literally just got shivers thinking about that. Interstellar 5555.
Yeah.
It's like, I love that. And I love that whole album too.
And that's where, I mean, it's kind of, Pink Floyd, they created The Wall. There was a lot of different artists that have, like The Who, creating Tommy and stuff that was, it's because we're making our next album in 5.1, we like are accompanying it with this stop motion film and bringing it to more film screenings so it could be heard the way it's meant to be heard, because they made quadraphonic, as like a little quick history, they made quadraphonic back in the day. And then a lot of the 70s bands came out, and, Pink Floyd and the Doors and everything, and Simon Garfunkel was all in quadraphonic, but it was up to the listener to go get the 4 speakers and, and the receiver and putting it together themselves. And the people just weren't doing it. And then Star Wars came out and they're like, well, okay, here comes Dolby. All right, here comes 5.1. And then, now it's people have home systems, that that's they're more apt to listen to surround sound when it comes to film, but they won't listen to it as much with music. Well, maybe VR can help with that more, especially if
we're hoping.
Yeah. But that's where, it was like, okay, well, we have to work with the film realm then, which I love anyway. I have a VHS collection.
I can't help it. We talk about have to.
Yeah, I mean,
I would have find all reasons to justify to work on it.
Yeah, I did 3 episodes the first time I'd ever done stop motion. It's like on our YouTube, and it's called Don't Stop Emotion. Because it's stop motion, don't stop
emotional dance music.
I totally got it. That's awesome.
And so that's where it was like, I feel like that's gonna be fun because we now have our band, we now have all the speakers, we have it all ready. It's gonna be, this project's gonna take some time, and we both went to art school, so I was thinking, well, we went to Columbia College Chicago up here, and there's an animation department, and there's, maybe we can pull in interns or, whatever to help with the animating part, because it does, to make a 3-minute animation, it will take me like a month, so to create a 45-minute animation, okay.
I was just watching the show. Have you seen it on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us?
I think so. I think I've seen the episode.
And they had an episode on The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nice.
And it's, they go back. They start out with like RoboCop. It's like all these movies that make all these cult classics. They're just awesome. And all the trials and tribulations of what was going on in the back end, talking to the producer, some of the actors. It's just really awesome. But it reminded me when you said taking time to make the stop motion. they were talking about The Nightmare Before Christmas, and they're like, this is a nightmare that almost never was.
It's like 3 years
It
it
was
took
like,
to make or something.
yeah, it took a really long time for them to make that, but just reminding me about that. Well, ladies, you know what? It's getting close to that time. We're going to need to wrap things up here at the DJ session. I got one last question for you. Tell us about selling vinyl.
Oh, so we have our own quote unquote independent private distribution company. It's called Desiree.
I think, I honestly, we put so much into the vinyl where it had like a holographic cover. There's no silence between sounds. The first and last song was two halves of the same song, so the album could loop. There's 180 gram. We had Matt Colton, Tom York's mastering engineer, cut the lacquer and master it. And he cuts the lacquer in this like special half speed cutting technique where he puts the song in half speed and makes sure every little sound gets cut in. So when I approach record stores, I just tell them all of that, like how it's made, and then it kind of just sells itself.
Right. So she kind of combined her music marketing information from college she learned, which was one sheet. You need a press release, you need a one sheet, you need a bio, yada yada. So she created a one sheet for our vinyl for the vinyl store owners, because a lot of the times it's owner owned and owner at the cashier register. So they're gonna it's like you need to almost present it the way in no other distribution company ever will, probably ever. But the one sheet is key for just the single vinyl store owner to really see the value of it, because it is hard to see if first of all, we're in a small subgenre, so most vinyl stores will sell a whole lot of, I don't know, Marvin Gaye. So you have to put it with the electronic section is usually kind of stashed away in the corner a lot of times in many cities in America. Most cities in America, it's like this tiny little thing that nobody touches except for that one kid, so we have to try to, it's like the only way we've known to sell it. I mean, distribution companies are selling a lot of vinyl incredibly low because of the quantity. I mean, Lizzo's full album is like $14, but yet we're selling ours at a range from 14 to 25 because it took a lot more cost wise
it took 14 to make it.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
That's how much each unit cost was 14. Yeah. So like when with the stores, it's like you could price it at whatever you want. It's just like, we just want the money back of what we made. It took to make it. And even on the one sheet, we actually made those dividers showing, here's 3 dividers of like, electronic or, melodic or, ambient, whatever, like it will fall into this realm, because a lot of times it's just like, they want to know, it's like, what should this sit next to? And it's like, well, maybe Daft Punk, if we're going to keep it DA, it is close to that. And it letting, it's like, you kind of have to like, it's like with press, you have to tell them exactly, here's the points, like tell them how it, they're not going to it's not going to be as easy for them to figure out. It's like, you've already got it figured out. Here you go. This is where you could put it,
Right. And it's 180 grams. So we couldn't bear, because, you never know how often you can create an album. So it might be once in a lifetime, maybe thrice, maybe 5 times in a lifetime. I don't know. So we wanted to make sure this one was 180 gram, because I don't know if you guys are as much as I was when I was a kid, but vinyl connoisseurs, it is those lower quality wax. It's just awful. It sounds like what's the point? I don't understand the point. It's better to stream it at that point. And I did do a test, our own audio test on the sound of the 180 gram in our loudspeakers, all of our speakers, and compared it with the digital WAV file. And you can really see it's a fuller, rich sound on vinyl. I mean, you can't see it, you can hear it. What I did get to see though was playing it through the DJM. And if you play the wave, it rides like hot more often on a wave. And with the rich vinyl, it actually has much more of a human, like a natural up and down of dynamics. It's very, very wide dynamic range. That just doesn't happen in the WAV file. I mean, like people just can't hear this difference anymore. It's like dying out. So I'm just here to save the world of audio quality.
Totally understandable on that. Now, Kristen and Desiree, is there anything else you want to let our DJ Sessions fans know about before I let you get going?
Your host is a really awesome person, and we always enjoy talking to him. So listen to him as much as you can.
Thank you so much for that. It was a pleasure having you on the show. We'll definitely be following up with you here in the near future. Where's the best place people can go find out more information about you both?
Well, our Instagram, we do stories pretty often. We also do lots of side hustles on those stories. If you're ever interested in building a house or house music, building houses and house music, both. Our YouTube has our adventurous videos of all of our many, many hobbies all entailed in one channel.
Yeah, Dance Loud Music.
That's it. That's the one.
That one, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so used to.
Yep.
I'm so used to being on the other side, and I point down.
Okay.
For guys, it's just
Swapperoo.
Right here.
Yeah.
right there. Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming on the show. We'll definitely be following up with you here in the near future. Would love to see more of that project, that house, when it gets completed. Maybe we'll share some pictures next time. Is there an ETA of completion on that?
We're going to have one unit ready before the summer's end. And then depending on how cold this winter is, that's how long it's going to take us to do the second floor, first floor, and basement. Oh boy.
But there's furnaces now, so it's better than last winter.
True.
Yeah.
We did not have furnaces. Very true.
Awesome. Well, Kristen and Desiree, thank you again for coming on the show. This is Dance Loud coming into you all the way from Chicago, Illinois. I'm your host, Darren, and I'm in the virtual studios for the DJ Sessions Presents the Virtual Sessions. Don't forget to go to our website, thedjsessions.com. Find us on TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook. We're out there. Just click on the buttons at the top of the site and you'll figure out all our socials. 600 news stories a month, virtual reality interviews, virtual reality sets, exclusive mixes, interviews, and more, all at thedjsessions.com. I'm your host, Darren. That's Dance Loud. And remember, on the DJ Sessions, the music never stops.